Hey! Welcome to part 3 of the QA series. Thank you so much for your patience and waiting for this third and final video. A bunch of stuff happened in the past couple months, and there was some unexpected health stuff. I'm okay now, but it was just really unexpected and sudden, and it threw off my timing for a bunch of stuff in life. And I also wrote and rewrote the outline for this video, recorded, and started editing 3 times now, if you're watching this version. So, yeah, I just kept redoing it because I really wanted to make sure that I covered everything I wanted to, and just really wanted to make sure that I did not share something that I half-assed, basically. So yeah, that's why it took so long to make this. I'd also like to shout out this lovely person, Anastasia. I just wanted to say your comment really helped me to get back into the swing of things when I was feeling very disconnected from this work and where my momentum was just super thrown off. So thank you for leaving that comment. Thank you to everyone else for clicking on this video, watching the other videos in this series, and if you haven't seen the other 2, please check them out. I will have them in a playlist on my channel. Today, I'll be talking about my creative career so far, answering questions about what it was like to do creative work in Korea, and sharing some advice and thoughts about creative work. I graduated from university with a degree in industrial design, and I chose that major because designing physical products sounded really appealing and exciting at the time. I thought that I could also make a good living after graduation by working in all different kinds of industries, making all different kinds of products. I learned a lot of great skills from my design classes, and they have shaped me into who I am as a designer, but also as a person. After I learned skills like design thinking, problem solving, ideation, prototyping, and testing, these gave me a new kind of structure and a way of thinking that allowed me to go even deeper into my ideas and explore them in a way that I wasn't able to before. In addition to my industrial design courses, I also took other art and design classes like photography, videography, drawing, screen printing, and more. I really enjoyed being able to try a little bit of everything and learning new skills. This also ended up being super helpful in my first couple of jobs. I worked at some smaller companies and startups, and that meant that I ended up doing a little bit of everything. And obviously I wasn't great when I first started out, but because I was in this environment where I had to take on a bit more than I was expecting, I really got to learn a lot and improve on many skills at once. So I majored in industrial design, but I've never professionally worked as an industrial designer. And I had a portfolio and resume made and everything by the time I graduated, but I didn't really like my work or felt proud of it. And I can say now that at the time, my heart really wasn't in finding like an industrial design job. I just knew that I needed any job, anything related to design, or doing something creative, preferably. But I had to get hired. I had to start making money. So an opportunity arose where my professor shared that one of his colleagues was hiring. So I wasn't too happy with the work I had, but I applied to it, didn't put much thought into it, and just went on my way. I ended up getting the job. Later, I found out that it's because I knew this like random program I picked up over one holiday break. I learned Blender. It's a 3D modeling program for fun, and I had just some like personal projects, did some practicing, and had it on my resume that, hey, I know some Blender, and they hired me for it. I did do a little bit with it, but not too much, honestly. That job, I was actually hired as a junior graphic designer. That company was in the construction equipment, technology industries, and I mostly did branding, vector illustrations, presentation design, and surprisingly, some augmented reality projects, which was really cool. After about 2 years working there, I decided to try freelancing because it sounded really great. You know, working from home, having control over when I worked and with who. You know, what doesn't sound great about that? It did not go well. Simply, I did not know how to run a business. I didn't know how to get clients. And even if I had clients, I knew nothing about bookkeeping or how to manage a project. None of that. I just didn't want to be in the office, I think. I really, I wasn't happy with where I was, like physically, like being located in that town and doing what I did. It was time for a change. So I did not end up getting any clients on my own, but I did work with a recruitment service. So this recruitment service agency, I did some work with them directly and also with clients that they connected me to. So for both the recruiting service agency and also my clients, I got through them. I mostly worked on marketing materials. I worked with other companies who specialized in marketing and also with nonprofits. So I worked on creating things like branding assets, which include logos, brand guides, illustrations, icons, and also some print work. So I did my fake freelancing for about a year, and still at that point in my life, I was miserable. Just not having a good time. Nothing felt like it was working, and I felt very unfulfilled. The opportunity arose to apply to teach English in Korea. And I just decided, you know what? This is a bucket list dream idea I've had for a long, long time. I put off applying to it for so many different reasons, and now in this moment, you know, what else do I have to lose? I don't have a job, anything else going for me, so let's just do it. Around this time, I also started hearing about UX design, which stands for User Experience Design. The work that UX designers do sounded much more appealing to me than industrial design or graphic design. So I decided that that would be my next professional goal, becoming a UX designer. I started learning more about UX and what skills I would need to become a UX designer. And as I was doing that, I learned that there were a lot of skills that carried over from what I studied and what I had been doing for work, which was super encouraging. So I continued to learn more about UX and UX skills. I made the effort to practice these skills by creating projects for myself or consciously trying to apply them to work projects when they felt appropriate. I did this on and off the entire time I was in Korea with the focus and purpose that in the end, I would make a portfolio based around my UX skills, UX projects, so that I could show that I was a capable UX designer. I applied to the teaching job, got it, ended up working in the Korean countryside at an elementary school, and it was great. Loved it. After that, I moved to Seoul. I ended up getting a short-term project at a media startup. So there I did some presentation design, illustrations, and also produced and edited some videos for them. After that project was over, I looked for another job and was hired as a full-time graphic designer at a media production / entertainment startup. There I did a little bit of everything from communication design, branding, making social media graphics for posts, and I also assisted with just like the planning part of content production and marketing materials. And then ultimately COVID happened and the company ended up closing, and again I had to leave. And then I came back to America. It was a really weird feeling coming back home because it felt so similar to the moment when I left home to go to Korea. I thought that when I came back, I'd be in a much better place in my life, much more successful, much more happier person. And I did come back mentally and emotionally healthier person. I had learned a lot, had some great experiences, not so great experiences, and all of that made me grow into a better and stronger person. I think about who I was before I lived in this other country and who I am now after having gone through that, and I am very thankful for that experience. And it's kind of crazy to me that I went through all of that. I'm actually realizing this now in this moment, that I went through all of that, and even when I came back, I was still so bummed because I had not achieved this level of success that I had set for myself. I think I should have been more proud of myself for having accomplished what I did. It's valid that I felt a bit bummed because I had no job and no money. Very little money. So, once again, with nothing to lose, I decided to go for it and seriously apply for a UX design position. Like I mentioned earlier, I had been studying and working on my own projects, as well as adapting work projects to practice UX skills. I already had a graphic design portfolio from the jobs I previously worked on, so I adapted that portfolio and curated my projects to create a UX-focused portfolio. I spent a few months applying and then was hired by my current company. And I've been working there for about 4 years now, and it's been really great. Honestly, I work in the finance industry, and it's something that I never, ever expected myself to do. When I first graduated, I think I was kind of snooty. I was like, oh, I want to go work for all of these like big fancy design companies. I'm not going to work in finance. I'm not going to work in construction or technology. That's so not design, not creative, but that's not true. We need good designers and designs everywhere. Good design can have such a great impact on people's lives and improve lives, honestly. Improve lives by impacting the products and services that we interact with on a daily basis, whether that is for entertainment or actual living necessities like utilities or healthcare. There's no need to be snooty about design. It's basically what I'm trying to say. And I'm telling this to my past self, not just you guys. But anyways, I realized that after almost 4 years now, I enjoy doing UX much more than graphic design. Through the experience of working as a graphic designer, I learned that I really don't like having to create marketing type graphics on a super tight deadline. The constant push to keep creating so much every day really drained me and left me really unhappy and feeling like a zombie. I learned that I would rather do this kind of image creation and illustrating as a hobby and not as a profession, because having the joy sucked out of that felt like I lost a part of me. Now that I've been doing UX for a few years, I can confidently say that this feels so much more sustainable to me as a day job than graphic design ever did. I like the practicality and the technicality of what I do, and it still requires me to be creative, but in like a very different way. In my previous job, I worked on creating a lot of marketing type graphics and branding assets. At this job, I've been working on improving our website and web-based tools to improve the way information and features and interactions are displayed and used on a page or a tool so that site visitors or the users of our tools can do and find what they're looking for. I mostly spend a lot of time reading and writing and thinking about how text is arranged or how a button looks like or how a button functions. And I understand that it sounds kind of lame right now. And sometimes I feel a little lame when I describe my job to someone else, but honestly, I really love it. I love thinking about how information and features connect to each other and how all of these little connections and interactions, how they work together and how they impact a product and in turn a service and in turn a brand. It's just so fascinating to me. What was it like doing creative work in Korea? I'm going to use my time working as a graphic designer in the media entertainment startup as the basis for what I talk about in this section. If you do want to hear more about the day-to-day details about that job, check out the second QA video. I want to start off by saying that I was very fortunate that my coworkers were lovely people and great to work with. Thankfully, I didn't experience too many large or crazy difficulties at this company, and it's definitely because of the people I was working with. Almost all of my coworkers were either foreigners like myself or native Koreans who had studied or lived abroad. And I think because we all had experience living and working in another country, it had an impact on how we approached communicating and working with each other. And there were some language barriers, but we were able to overcome them and figure things out pretty quickly. We were also a startup, so we didn't have too many strict processes in place, so we were able to figure out what worked for our individual teams. So with all of that said, the actual doing creative work in Korea for me didn't feel that much different compared to my experiences doing creative work in America. Things like meetings and conversations I had at work were the same. We had meetings to talk about what needed to be made, why, when we needed it by. I worked primarily with the marketing team, and they came up with campaigns and a lot of ideas, like key ideas, concepts, timelines. I helped contribute ideas and, of course, made the visuals that we needed. I made things like social media posts, short-form videos, illustrations, and even helped with some photography. We also had like a legit video production team, and they made more of like the longer, higher quality videos. And they worked on more projects with one of the producers, vocal coaches, and choreographers. The marketing team would also sometimes support them with any planning, ideating, and I would also create any graphics they needed, like animations as well as video thumbnails. I used the same tools and programs I used in America. Adobe programs like Photoshop, Illustrator, Premiere Pro, Procreate for some illustrations, a drawing pad with a digital pen, and a good old pen and paper. Now the job and the actual creating of graphics and moving pixels around, that didn't really change. A thumbnail is a thumbnail wherever you go. You'll present an idea and the boss will say, make it blue. And then they'll change their mind and say, make it purple. And then you go through the entire rainbow and then you go back to blue. That process is the same. I will say the biggest difference when I was designing in Korea is how I visually conveyed ideas. I grew up in America. I went to university in America, had my first design jobs here, and that meant I spent a lot of time designing for American audience members. So that means I was used to choosing certain graphics, colors, photos, and fonts that were familiar to the people in this audience. And then I would then arrange these things in compositions that would be familiar and share certain messages with these audience members. Moving to Korea now meant I had to design for a primarily Korean audience. This meant I had to reassess my usual go-to visual choices and figure out what visuals and motifs and compositions were more expected and effective for this new audience I was designing for. The first visual I was not used to, and therefore prioritized learning more about, was the Korean alphabet, Hangul. I had never designed anything using Hangul before, so I had to get familiar with the typographic patterns that are used when designing with Hangul. Sites like this one, made by Naver for their fonts, were a great resource. Reading about why the designers of the typeface made the decisions that they did was helpful. Seeing examples of how type can be used were also super helpful. Seeing examples like these helped me start building my understanding of Korean type and visual communication patterns. Most of my research and learning and attempts to understand design motifs in Korea was just me paying attention to everything. I would try to analyze everyday things like signs, websites, apps, social media posts, and even physical products. I would try to think through the context the design was in and what the designer may have been trying to communicate. I would consider who they were trying to communicate for and what visual choices they made to communicate that message. You don't really need a separate set of design skills to work in Korea or any specific country. You might need a certain set of skills to work in a certain industry or work on a certain product, but not for a specific country. What I just talked about in the previous section is an example of how I learned what is most effective for my target audience. As a designer, you will have to do something like that no matter what country you go to. Who you design for and why will probably always be changing, so you will constantly have to keep learning how to best communicate with your audience group. If you're interested in becoming a graphic designer or really any other designer, I would just say learn the basic skills that are expected of you in a professional work setting and really nail those down. Do you understand what the skills are asking you to do? Are you practicing those skills? And more importantly, are you making mistakes and learning from those mistakes as you practice these skills? There's already a lot of great content out there made by designers where they go over basic design skills and how to become a better designer, so I won't cover those here. What I will suggest though is to try thinking about this question a little differently. Instead of focusing on working in a specific country, I would suggest thinking about what industry you'd like to work in, what you'd like to be making, or what skills you would like to specialize in. Because from a business perspective, a company doesn't really care that you've always wanted to work in a certain country. What a company is looking for when they're thinking about hiring you is to see if you're a good fit to work with them. So when you're applying to jobs, your objective is to present a portfolio that highlights your amazing skills, but also why you would be a great candidate for the role you applied for. You might find more success if you make yourself stand out from other candidates by specializing in either a few specific skills, a certain industry, or even a specific kind of thing you design. Unfortunately, I can't give a definite answer to either of these questions because the answer is going to depend on the job and also your personal situation. I will share what happened for me, but I do recommend doing your own research and listening to other people's experiences as well. In general, as a foreigner, if you want to work in Korea or another country other than where you're living, you will need a visa that lets you work. Some companies may offer work visas if you're hired, and that information would be included in a job posting. So I wasn't too sure what visa might be offered to a foreigner who wants to work as a graphic designer in Korea, but I did some quick research. And it looks like it might be an E-type visa. And for those, an employer would have to explain why they would want to hire a foreigner instead of a local designer. So that pretty much means you need to have a really great portfolio, good resume, and give the employer a really good reason to hire you instead of a local. For me, I did not need a work visa for any of the jobs I had while I was in Korea. I was born in Korea, so I was eligible for the F4 visa, which does not require employers to sponsor me. For the second question, again, not a definite answer, but I wouldn't say you need to graduate from a Korean university to work as a designer in Korea. But I will say if you did graduate from university in Korea, I would think that it could only benefit you and give you that extra push when applying to jobs, especially if you've done things like made any connections in the local design community while studying there or anything similar to this scenario. But most Korean companies will probably want to see that you graduated from a university on your resume. However, this is a creative job, and sometimes there are places that will hire you depending on your portfolio and work experience. Those places probably most likely aren't going to be the large companies, but could be some smaller studios. You just never know with creative work. There's places that hire people with no degrees, but they have an excellent portfolio and crazy good design skills. I do get asked if I have any advice for younger designers or young designers, and that's how the question askers introduce themselves to me, not my perception of them. Because even though I'm currently a mid-level designer at my company, I still kind of feel like a younger designer. because I'm still learning so much, and I'm realizing that I still have so much to learn and that we can always learn from each other. So instead of advice makes me sound like I'm more experienced, which I might be, but I don't know. Yeah. Again, we could learn from each other. So I'm renaming the section to thoughts. Okay, the first thought. Just do it. Don't wait for inspiration. Don't depend on motivation or inspiration to make something. Make time to practice what you're learning and seeing. And take the time to explore ideas that you've been dreaming about and just keeping in your head. I feel like I wasted a lot of time when I was younger, just waiting for that profound lightning bolt of electric creative energy to hit me. And then that would be the perfect timing and moment to explore and start creating my masterpiece. For some reason, I thought that creative work was only allowed if it was a profound idea and you got that jolt of inspiration. You don't wake up one day and just run a marathon or just draw a masterpiece. Ooh. You build up to it. You build up to it by every mile and doodle at a time, no matter how bad they are. So it took me a while, but I started practicing this pattern of just doing without waiting for motivation or feeling like the time was right. For the past few years, I've been keeping a list of ideas that I want to explore. And when I have some free time, I set a timer for myself, pick an idea from the list, and just go for 5 or 10 minutes, and I do whatever the idea makes me think of. Whether that is opening a Word document or selecting some colored pencils, I just do the first thing that comes to mind and see where that takes me. And usually if I do that, an hour or so will fly by and I will have created something that I did not expect by simply just turning my brain off and just going for it. Second thought. For a long time, I didn't really spend time truly reflecting on my mistakes or thinking about what I could have done differently, and then actively try doing those different methods. With this thought, I feel like it was really silly of me. It makes sense that I was making mistakes. I was doing these things for the first time. And of course I'm not good at it yet. I just started. That's what learning is. But for some reason, it was so hard for me to accept that it's okay to make a mistake. Accepting that being wrong was okay and a part of learning helped me to start seeking out how to try things differently. This led to me asking other people for help and about what they knew. That's something else I struggled with. I was really uncomfortable asking people for questions or for feedback and learning from other people because, again, that meant that I had to admit to them that I didn't know something or that I had made a mistake, and since that was a bad thing, I didn't want other people to know that. We can all learn something from each other, and now I love asking questions and listening to other people's experiences. And if you ever have the opportunity to especially talk to coworkers or also people around you and you see them doing the things you want to do, I highly recommend you talk to them and see what you can learn from each other. Okay, and the last idea. Learn to let your ideas go. It's very important to learn how to not be so emotionally attached to your ideas and designs. Because being too fixated on an idea can cloud your vision and keep you from exploring other ideas and receiving feedback. The very nature of design work usually means that you are not designing for yourself. In the workplace, you will also have to explain your design decisions. And these decisions should primarily be based on your audience, what they need, and the business goals of your company. Just because you really like an idea isn't going to be a good enough reason to move forward with a design. And then also when you're working at a company, and just with a team in general, many times things don't go the way you expect. Timelines will shift, requirements will change, and sometimes You might not even be able to work on the idea that was initially chosen. You have to be able to do what you can with the resources and time you and your team have. That means learning how to be flexible and knowing when to move on from an idea that isn't working is a key part of the job. When I was in school, we had critique sessions for many of my art classes. This is where we put our final work up on the wall and our classmates could share comments or ask questions. And I found critique sessions really uncomfortable because I felt like I myself was up for critique on the wall. I found myself thinking that if my ideas were criticized or rejected, it meant something negative about me as a person and somehow my worth. But that is not the case. An idea is just an idea. And if it gets passed over in a meeting, it means nothing about your value as a person. That's it. All 3 videos of the QA series finally done. Oh my gosh. I can't believe it. Yeah, that didn't take too long at all. I had a hard time planning out what to say in this video because there's so much I had to think about and there's so much I wanted to talk about. So I hope you liked this video. Hope it was helpful in some shape or form. And yeah, thank you again for watching. Best wishes to those of you who are starting your creative journeys, trying to build your own creative careers. Best wishes to everyone, but also don't forget to have fun, okay? Alright, so again, thanks for watching, and I will see you soon in the next video. Bye!